Hello and welcome to episode 132 of the Access to Inspiration podcast. I'm your host, Sue Stockdale, and today we have an incredibly powerful and transformative story to share with you. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, Cobe Williams, the Director of U.S. Programming for Cure Violence Global, to the show. Cobe takes us on a deeply personal journey through his upbringing in Chicago, revealing his exposure to street and gang violence and how the harrowing impact of violence affected him in his community. In this episode, you'll learn how Cobe turned his life around, dedicating himself to community work and violence prevention. You'll also learn how his work is transforming communities by fostering relationships and addressing the root causes of violence. And as always, you can read a transcription of this episode as you listen on our website, accesstoinspiration.org. So welcome to the podcast, Cobe. Tell us what your background is and what your job is today.
So my name is Cobe Williams, the Director of U.S. Programming for Cure Violence Global. Born and raised in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, a community called Inglewood/Auburn Gresham. Growing up as a kid in Chicago on the south side, man, I learned a lot. I learned a lot at an early age. The street life, the gang life, just all type of things. My best lessons was learned in the community where I grew up at. It's a lovely community. I love the community, but a lot of violence happened to take place in the community where I grew up. And violence just making this country sick. I remember them days where we had block parties bringing everybody out, block the streets out, pitching quarters, just being little kids, acting silly and all that. Sneaking, cut the fire hydrant on, the water on, and having fun. But quickly, it went from that to no fun. And I remember I was like 3 years old when my father went to prison for a murder. And then I remember going to see my father in prison. I was like 4 and 5 years old. And I remember his friends was teaching me how to represent through signs, gang signs, and different things like that. And I remember when my father came home, I was 11 years old. And when he came home, he got killed. So my mother was around. She was always on drugs. My grandparents did the best they could for me. So I just turned to the streets. I felt like I was getting a lot of love and a lot of excitement being in the street. And now everybody who I was running around with at that time, me and my friends, we all had something in common. And the thing we had in common is we have a father in our life. So we just start making choices at that time. And some of us, them choices end us up in prison. Some of my friends got killed to gun violence, got shot, and different things like that.
Now, I know one of the things that was quite pivotal in your story, Cobe, was when you were in court and you saw how your 4-year-old son reacted. Tell me about that.
Yes, because that was a touching moment. You know, I wanted to do good. My grandparents stayed on me. And when I came home, other people was in my ear. But I was in court, in custody. And my son was at court, came to court for me, 4 years old. My son, my mother, my sister, and my son, and all that. And they was pulling me out the back, the bailiff pulling me out the back. And I got handcuffs on me, shackles on my legs, and pulling me out. And the judge realized that me and my son haven't seen each other. He sensed that right away. So my son ran up to me, Daddy, I love you. I'm like, I love you too. So the bailiff took the handcuffs off me. So I know I ain't finna go home because I'm in custody fighting my case. I'm finna go back to the back. My son finna go out the door. So I told him, man, your mama called me. Go see what she want. He started broke down in front of the whole courtroom. I want my daddy. I want my daddy. I want my daddy. And so right then I started like, man, I got to be there for him. I want to be here for my son and all that. So that's one of the moments that really shaped me, but I really didn't get it together right then. But that's a starting point.
So given that you made that decision then to change, to be there for your son, how did you then turn your life around?
Right. So I remember like in Chicago, we got WGN, that's the Channel 9 News, right? And at 9 o'clock, we always watched that in jail. So when you're in prison, in jail, that was like mandatory because it made us feel closer to home because we see the community and different things like that. So once we start seeing the community, like different things like that, I was like, man, I need to get back out there and do the right thing. And I'm seeing all the senseless killing going on. So the street organization I was a part of, the founder here just came home for doing 28 years, Mr. Freeman. And he was like, man, Cobe, you need to get it right. I'm going to need to get it right. And now he the one introduced me to Ceasefire. It was called Ceasefire at the time, but now it's Cure Violence Global. He introduced me to that, so I started volunteering and different things like that, and I started doing the work. So from there, I want to be consistent with it and really want to continue to give back and help my community. So I've been doing the work for about close to 20 years. When I first started off, my job title was a violence interrupter. A violence interrupter, more like a fireman, putting out flames, putting out fire in the community, stopping people from shooting, killing each other, changing people's mindsets, just spending time, but most important, building relationships and meet people where they are.
It also strikes me that listening is probably a key skill that you really had to be demonstrating.
Yes, it's important to listen and get to know people and build relationships. So you got to do a lot of listening because that's the problem. A lot of you feel nobody don't listen to them. So if you show them they got your undivided attention then and you listening to them, they'll open up to you and they'll really share what they have going on.
There was something I read in your book, which is called Interrupting Violence, that really fascinated me, was that you said a lot of violence is not about gangs at all. It's interpersonal. So tell me what you mean by that.
Yes, because a lot of times people, when the news cut on the news and somebody got shot or somebody got killed or whatever, they always say it's gang related. That's not true. A lot of this violence is interpersonal. He looked at me the wrong way. He disrespected my lady. Or me and him used to mess with the same woman. Or he stepped on my shoe. Or he just looking at me. He just bumped me. Or somebody said he said I was talking about him. That's what I'm saying. Be a lot of interpersonal. It ain't gang related. And sometimes what happened is when somebody come from different groups, was part of this group, that group, you come from that group. So if I get into it with you now, it's like you don't say it's gang related because he come from a group and I come from a group. But all the time it's something interpersonal. You owe me some money or something.
So when you're out there on the streets then and you're getting to build relationships with people and it's kicked off, how do you calm things down? Because I imagine it has the potential to get heated and you're there trying to show a different way.
I mean, it's all about relationships. A lot of times you could calm things down when you have a relationship with these young people. It's about relationship and like you was just saying, it's about listening to them. And it's about not judging them, meeting where they are. So relationships is everything and listening to them is everything. And we focus on stopping shooting and killing before it happened. Once it happened, we focus on stopping retaliation. But we do our best at what we're trying to do to help change their mindset and change their thinking.
So it sounds like it's a really important role that you're playing in the community now. I'm wondering also whether part of what enables you to do what you do, Cobe, is that you've got credibility yourself with the people that you're engaging with.
Yes, credibility is everything. You got to be a credible messenger. You got to have the respect in the community where people know you and all that. And where sometimes you ain't bragging on your past, but they know what you've been through and they see you here change. So what we doing right now is like, even when I talk about the book, we talking about redemption. We talking about second chance. We talking about how people could redeem themselves. Guess what? I started out one way, but now look what I'm doing now. So it's all about showing people. And I want to be able to keep inspire other people to let them know they're not alone.
So there you were, you'd made your mind to change how you were. You got involved with what's called Cure Violence Global. How did you then expand what you were doing? Because I think now you're responsible for training in over 50 sites in 20 cities, I understand.
Yeah, there's programs all over the world with the Cure Violence model. So many people looking for a model to help stop that violence in their community. So they reach out to us because we got over 20 evaluations showing that when you implement this model right, it works. So we able to use the system that we have in place to help people reduce shooting and killing in their community. So that's what we do every day is help people get it together. So a lot of different people reach out to us, private funders, mayor office, health department, city councilman, and everybody reached out and everybody trying to find a way to help reduce this violence in their community. So we help set it up. But keep in mind, the people who do the work are from their own community, though. We just help set it up, but they'll be the one doing the work. But we provide training for them, technical assistance, stay on them, make sure they implement the model right.
So coming back to the point about credibility, when people are implementing it in their own communities, those that are implementing it have got the credibility in those places.
Yes, credibility is everything. And the people who do this work are from their own community, where people know them. Like I'm born and raised in Southside Chicago. I'm working in the area where I grew up at, where I know people at. I might know the brother, the father, the uncle, the sister, the cousins, and everything. So credibility is everything. And they know we meet them where they are, ain't judging them on them.
What gives you most satisfaction about what you're doing now, Cobe?
But give me satisfaction knowing I could help save somebody's life. It feels good to know I saved somebody from getting shot or getting killed. It feels good to know once somebody got hurt, I was able to stop retaliation. It feels good when these brothers and sisters reach out like, man, I really appreciate you. They motivate me. They just keep me going and all that. And it feels good to see how a lot of these young people got on the right track because somebody like me and my coworkers showed them it's a better way. That feel great. That's the best. Sometimes people tell me I'm their hero and all that. I say, I ain't your hero, but they like what I'm doing though. So I really appreciate that.
So given that you got into what you're doing now, in a way to be a role model for your son and to be there for your son, what does he think of you now and what you're doing?
He love what I'm doing and he even told me, he said, Dad, I'd be stupid to go down that road and knowing what you've been through. So that made me feel good that he's seeing what I'm doing and he understand what I'm doing and he know it's a real reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's a good feeling.
The other thing that I know that you mentioned that's important to you is sport and how that can really help in community situations. Tell me about how sport can be helpful.
Yeah, so sports is just a hook, right? Sports is just a hook to hide a band. It's just like one of the tools in the toolkit. Sports to bring them together, but it's much bigger than sports. Everybody like basketball, everybody like football, everybody like some type of sports, but basketball unite. So to have a good friend like Joakim Noah, former NBA player, played with Chicago Bulls, to come in and all that. That's people who they look up to. These young people look up to celebrities, rappers, and you know people like that. And to have them to be a part of what we're doing is major. And before we even get to sports, we do workshops and everything. We do financial literacy, community building, building relationship, conflict resolution, de-escalate situations. We train all that, but it's a lot of relationship building. So when they see each other now, they ain't got to look at him and say, "Oh man, he on that side of the street," and all that. They build good relationship with him.
So you're using sport as a means to bring people together.
Yes.
From what you're saying is you're describing it that you've been able to turn around situations and change people's lives effectively. I'm imagining it's not 100% success all the time.
It depends on how much damage has been done, though. So you have to take the situations case by case sometimes. It varies.
So given that this is the Access to Inspiration podcast, Cobe, I always ask guests who or what inspires you. So how do you keep yourself inspired to keep doing the work that you're doing?
Man, people around me, you got to have a strong support system. That's important. But you got to lean on people who've been through what you've been through and who don't want to go back down that road. So a lot of my coworkers inspire me a lot of times too because we know this work is important and we know where we came from and where we at now. And I want people to know it's okay to give a person a second chance because we was locked up before. That don't mean we need to stop right there. Forgive us and I want people to know that you can redeem yourself.
I think it's a wonderful way that you're describing that in terms of everybody can have a second chance.
Yes, that's important. Yes. It ain't how you start, it's how you finish.
If you were going back to speak to the young Cobe there on the streets as a child, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to yourself as a 10-year-old?
I do a lot of listening to him and let him tell me what he got going on or what she got going on. I just listen without saying anything. Then I let him know it's other places you could go. Like some of these young people ain't been off the block. They ain't never been downtown. They ain't never been to a basketball game, a football game. I'll show them you can spread your wings and go other places to see other things. And I always just tell them it's important to watch who you hang with and different things like that. So it's really just listening to them and just building with them more than anything.
And do you think that that's kind of an alternative for you? Because you said at the start, many of you and your friends didn't have some type of parental support. Do you think that listening is an alternative for young people to have if they don't have kind of a strong sense of parental support around them?
Yeah, people don't just wake up and say they want to do something bad to somebody, right? Or they don't want to just act out. But a lot of times, people sometimes, body language sometimes, and they action, it's like they won't help, but they don't know how to ask for help. So you got to watch and try to understand them, that they really trying to get help somehow and all that. And sometimes people act out just to get attention because they feel like they're alone and nobody don't care. So you really got to watch it. It could be any way. You got to really watch these things.
So effectively, you're bringing a bit of human behavior and psychology into what you're doing.
Yes, this work is all about psychology to me. You got to be thinking on your feet at all times.
And the other thing that is important these days for anybody in any walk of life is this idea of conflict resolution, because I don't necessarily think we often get great examples of how conflict can be resolved in a amicable and peaceful way.
Yes. And that's our main thing. We want brothers and sisters know it's okay to have disagreements, but you ain't got to lead to violence. Let's sit down and work it out.
It's such an important thing, isn't it?
Yes.
So how come then you went from all the work that you're doing now to writing this book, Interrupting Violence? Tell me about how the book came about.
So I remember I was in a documentary some years ago called The Interrupters. And so many people used to come to me and say, man, you inspire me, break down and cry and all that. Like, oh man, I was losing it. I ain't care about living no more. I used to hear that from a lot of people. And they just break down crying. So I've been wanting to say, man, I want to do something else to inspire people, to let them know, man, they not alone. It ain't how you start, it's how you finish. But I want them not to give up. Not to give up. And there's people like me who've been through it all just like them. So I want to really use the book, not so much to tell my story in a sense, but to inspire people and motivate people to let them know, regardless of what you're going through, you can redeem yourself. You can be a better you. And sometimes you can have a rocky start when things don't seem like they're going right. But if you just hang in there and you keep pushing hard, we can do it.
I've spoken to many people over the years, Cobe, who say that they want to write a book, but they never go from wanting to do it to actually making it happen. And even that in and of itself is an achievement. How did you go about the process of making it happen? Because sometimes that's a really difficult bit.
It is difficult, but me and my co-author, Josh G, I call him Josh G, we put a lot of time in it. It took like 10 years because we're working and this and that and all that. So it had got to the point now I had start having him to travel with me when I'm going to do my work and stay in hotel hours and all that. It took a lot into that. And we're just always writing stuff down and make sure we got it in a good place. And we just stayed going at it.
So Josh was pulling the thoughts out your head to be able to get them written down on a bit of paper.
Yes.
And how is it being received then by those that are reading it?
Right now, the book come out July the 2nd. So people just now get some of their pre-orders and all that. I'm hoping a lot of people get it. And they talk about ways to mediate conflicts, tools, and to educate people and talk about the root cause of violence, a lot of things. So it's real formally educating people also.
And if you had a message for our listener of all the things that you've been doing and learning about how to reduce violence, how to cure violence, what are some of the key messages that you would share with our listener, no matter where they are in the world?
Meet people where they are. Don't judge nobody because you never know what they've been through and what they're going through. Don't judge them. Meet them where they are. Build relationships with them. Get to know them. Don't let nobody else just tell you, oh man, he bad and he this, he that. We don't look at people as good and bad people. We understand people make choices. So really just build relationships with them and don't talk down on them, right? A lot of times people say if they're not doing great things and all that, don't focus on that. Focus on the positivity they do.
I'm really interested in what you're saying here because there's so many parallels between people in other walks of life who in business and corporates, and we've had guests from loads of different backgrounds from sport and business, and the messages are consistent across the different conversations. I think you're doing some great work in the communities that you're working in, and those important things about meeting people where they are and not judging them is such a universally important message for anyone to hear.
And I think that's super important.
How do you keep learning, Cobe? Because one of the things, I guess, is that idea of continually growing and learning. How do you keep learning yourself?
I just keep learning, just doing the work, just doing what I'm supposed to be doing out there to make a difference and hearing from the people out there. So just constantly being out there and seeing what's going on out there and just learning.
And given that you're able to travel to different cities, are there kind of cultural or geographical differences when you travel and work in these different places?
I see some of the same violence, but when you go in the foreign countries and out the country, you see a lot. In some places, you could see people don't have anything, but they get along a little better. So sometimes, we want to really just try to unite the city, show more love and care and all that. But sometimes it depends on what have happened or what had took place right then. That determines everything. And we always use like how much damage have been done. It's one thing if somebody up a gun on you, and one thing is they shoot you. That's something different.
I really wish you well with the book. I hope it's a great success. It's been lovely to speak to you today. And if people do want to find out more about you and the work that you do, how might they do that?
Go to interruptviolence.com. Interruptviolence.com. Please get the book. Please spread the word. I would love to come do a follow-up conversation with you or anybody else who want me to come out to sit on a panel, an event, or whatever. Please spread the word and get the book out there. I think it's important. And I think people could benefit from learning from the book.
Well, I'm sure that they will. I will go off thinking about what you said. It's not how you start, but it's how you finish. And that's our important message. Thank you, Cobe.
Thank you for having me, and looking forward to continue this journey and helping save the people all over.
Fantastic. Well, I hope you found my conversation with Cobe fascinating, and it showed how the skill of listening is universally important, no matter where we live or work in life. Remember, we have over 120 other episodes in our back catalogue on subjects ranging from business and sports to the arts and social change. Just hop on over to our website, accesstoinspiration.org, to discover them all. And make sure that you keep connected to us by subscribing to our podcast on the platform you're listening to it on, and then you'll never miss an episode when it publishes. You'll also know that our podcast is a free to listen to podcast, but it's not free to make. So if you enjoyed it, then show your appreciation and buy me a coffee. That means clicking on the Buy Me a Coffee link on the show notes to make a small donation, and I can enjoy that coffee when I'm producing the next episode. Your support really encourages us to continue producing quality audio content for our listeners. Next week, I will be speaking to Shoko Doherty, who left Japan to study music in Wales and then went on to become the CEO of Celtic English Academy. I hope you can join us then.